I'm Tony Ruiz, contributing editor at Gold Derby, here with Rachel Kondo and Justin Marks, the creators and executive producers and writers and probably caterers too of the 25-time Emmy nominated Shōgun. And, you know, I just want to start with, with this show hitting like it has and kind of capturing the zeitgeist. Did you ever, in any realm, expect that this show would do exactly what it's done, would have the impact and have the reach that it has?
No. It's a thank you. It's a subtitled show, and I think always from the beginning we were really adamant in our conviction that the show should be performed in Japanese, and as was FX. There was definitely conversation about how we did it, but we always felt that in some way maybe that was going to be a restriction on the audience, the size of the audience, the makeup of the audience potentially. But we were really just overjoyed. I think the moment that we were kind of just recently talking about that, I think we realized that there was something strange about this was actually like last summer, right? Not this summer, but a year ago. We were showing my brother just the first episode to make him see it. My brother and I used to make movies together, but he went on to have a career as an engineer, and he stole my Pix password and just binged the whole thing while we went to bed. And he couldn't stop talking about it, couldn't stop watching it, and couldn't be less what I would expect to be the audience for this show. And we were like, this is really unexpected. Yeah.
It was so not in our purview that this could do really well with people. So much so that I think it's almost what freed us up to just do the work, was because when you don't expect a huge audience, you're not constantly thinking about it. So we just had to fall in love with the process itself, and yeah.
Well, you talk about the process, and this is adapted from a 1,200-page book, and so I'm wondering, first of all, what was your first exposure to the book, and then where do you even start with something that's this epic in scale?
Yeah. Well, we like to say that generationally speaking, we had been skipped over, or not skipped over. I'm sorry. We just were the generation after the book and the miniseries in 1980. And so we didn't live in the immediate impact of the book, but what we did do is we came of age kind of in the aftermath of the impact. And so I think that the world changed after that, and it was open to it, but we didn't have familiarity with it. We knew of it, but we hadn't read the book. We weren't. I didn't even really know the storyline. I knew the setting, but that was it. And same as Justin. And I'll let you take it away.
I think that it was kind of a nice position to be in, because so many books, movies, TV shows, works have been derived from Shōgun in some way over the years. And because of that, some of the shapes that it invented and innovated at the time, felt like, okay, well, we have to be in search now of new cliches, right? Like new ways of telling this story, and not lean on the familiarity of the stranger in a strange land and the discovery of everything in this world, but instead to tell a story in a lot of ways, I think, closer to what Clavel intended, which was this like intersectional work where it was about the way we encounter other cultures and how we encounter ourselves as well. We like to say this isn't a Japanese story any more than it is a European story. It's a Japanese and European story, which makes it kind of special in the ranks of stories told in these worlds, because it really depends on both sides coming together.
So at what point in the process did Hiroyuki Sanada come on as a producer? Because I feel like everybody I've talked to with this show has talked about his kind of impact, and I'm curious about how that kind of relationship developed.
It was, yeah, we were out of the writer's room. We had 10 scripts, and that's such a luxury when you can give your actor, a full story, so to speak, to see if he wants to do it. I mean, in our minds, there was never anyone but Hiro Sanada for this part. And yeah, we sent it to him. I had a few conversations with him, and it became clear in those early conversations that there was something more here than just the star of your show, that this was an actor who had been working in the Japanese film industry since he was 7 years old, had been working in the international, Hollywood film industry for the last 20, 25 years. And that he had an extraordinary built-in knowledge of essentially all the mistakes that we've been making as an industry for a very long time. And so the conversation started with like, how have we gotten it wrong so much, and how could we make this different? Because we really wanted to start there on the page to do that. But also we knew that it would have to extend deep into production. And he had all this great advice of, here's what, really bothers him when American productions do this, and here's how we can change that. And it just became clear at that point, like we were talking to a producer too, that there was a way that using Hiro-san to reach out to his contacts in Kyoto and Tokyo, and to bring these advisors to us, these specialists to us, it was just an invaluable resource.
All who wanted to work with him too, specifically, actors too. I mean, everybody signed on to work with the great Sanada-san. So it was always
as you guys are breaking, you talked about you had all the scripts. What was that process like? Because as an English teacher, I'm totally fascinated by the concept of adapting literature and how you develop this story. And so how much went into breaking this 1,200 page book into a 10 episode series?
Yeah,
that's for you. You're the
what no, what we I'm the writer. What we like to what's been fun about this process of talking about it is that it looks like it was very intentional and everything was planned and organized, but a lot of it felt very chaotic for a very long time, because none of us had done quite this specific work. And so I mean, as far as the structure goes, I can leave that to the professional here, but all I'll say is that we ended up starting to look at each episode like we would a short story. Is there a beginning? Is there a middle? Is there an end? Is there a character arc that we can follow through? Is there a smaller storyline that can support that character arc, or that can speak to its own story, story within a story? All these smaller things that ended up mattering to us. And somehow, I mean, the magic of it is that somehow, because we were all in this mind space together, us in the writer's room, the 10 short stories added up to something that felt quite comprehensive somehow. And that's something none of us knows how to discuss.
Well, I think that the book afforded us a lot of luxury when it came to the way Clavel would structure his stories, more so than a lot of television shows. I think it allowed us to rely disproportionately on the A story in every episode, and to center the A story, and to allow what B and C stories were there to just kind of wrap around it. And what that meant for us was it got past my biggest pet peeve in TV, which is just the kind of C stories that are just there to keep the characters alive. Like we never wanted to have an uninformed, unmotivated cut to something else that didn't feel it was part of the whole. And but at the same time, like, we were never really constructing this, like they always say, a 10-hour movie. It's like, no, this is not a 10-hour movie. These were 10 one-hour stories that we hope sort of wrap together as a saga in the way that Clavel did it for the book as well. That every story, has that short fiction quality of a beginning, middle, and end.
And the quality of feeling, of having some degree of satisfaction by the end of it, and by satisfaction, I mean having been entertained, having been hooked by a twist, but having been devastated by a loss. Like I think every good short story leaves you with a depth of feeling in either direction that you didn't have when you started.
And also, I should say, there's nothing that bugs me more than TV seasons where the episodes just kind of blur together. That we really wanted a silhouette for each episode. This is the one where, this is the one where, this is the one where, and for the audience to feel like everyone was its own mood, its own vibe, and the directors who came and went across the course of the season were really locked in on that. We tone within an inch of every episode's life. It's a good 8-hour, 2-day process to tone every one of these episodes.
Well, with that in mind, you have 2 nominations in the writing category, both the first episode, Anjin, and then Crimson Sky. What was behind kind of putting both of these episodes forward together?
We put all the episodes forward, which was always bound to catch some flack, but I come from...
it's interesting you say that, because there's a school of thought that don't submit too many episodes or else one won't stand out. So I'm interested about this.
Yeah, I mean, it runs into what is kind of my category contempt for the way we in television start to honor individual episodes as opposed to the contributing work of the writers' room, who really works arm in arm together through the entirety of the process, or at least the entirety of the writers' room process. That all of us work together to build these episodes, and I consider a nomination for one episode, let alone 2 episodes, really to be a nomination shared by every writer in the writers' room. And I think that's not exceptional. That's you look across the gamut, whether we want to admit it or not, every episode is group written.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to exclude any of our writers from that process. And if that means, kind of diminishing the chances for a win for anyone, well, so be it. Then it's not a win on terms that I think are fair. I'm really, for example, the Writers Guild Awards, always honor best writing, period. And I really think that makes sense as a distinction, and it means all the writers get up and get to share that. Episode 9, Rachel and Callan's episode, Callan, who I should add started 5 years ago on this show as the writer's room assistant, and now here she is, an Emmy nominee for her work, and it's because her contribution to the show runs through all the episodes, as do all the other writers.
And the truth is that the writers' room is kind of it's looking at it's just the microcosm for the whole thing, which is that we had to do something as a group and as a team that any one of us could not have done alone. And that's just what the whole process has been like. Like, that's what's so special about TV, is that any we all just link arms in doing this special work that ends up being so much better because we did it together versus alone. So I kind of agree with Justin in that it's funny. It's funny that just the 2 of us here talking to you. I get it. I get that we have to we can't have 2,000 people behind us, but that's what's standing behind us, metaphorically speaking. So
in writing, Rachel, Justin refers to you as the writer. Her
prose runs through all that, connects this certain intangible beauty that the show represents. I really credit Rachel with that.
So
nice.
That's very nice. So how did the writing process is just so fascinating to me. What did the scripts look like? How much of it is stage direction, and how much of it is on the page versus the collaboration with the directors?
That's an interesting question. Well, we'll just say that the first, anytime I turn in a draft, there's more stage direction than there is anything else. And Justin's first thought is always to just give it right back to me and say no. Too much stage, because I come from the world of fiction, in which I'm trying to be a short story writer and a novelist, and sentences matter, words matter, and it's just different in the world of screenwriting. What matters more is again the collective idea and how you arrive at that idea.
And I like to say, my influence, my background, I was always a writer from the time I was a kid, but my education is in architecture, and structure is a very important discipline for me. And the way we mete out the experience of watching our episode, that's the end result. And so all this prose that kind of sometimes goes on the top of it, at least in the stage description, sometimes it's valuable because it is a tool. I always believe strongly in caring deeply about our prose, but it's a tool for communication to our directors, to our crew, to our fellow filmmakers, about what the mood, what the vibe, what the intent of the scene is. It is not an end in itself. And so I mean it when I say that these tone meetings go on forever. Apologies to all our directors, but it's they're really just this chance to walk through something that we, as a writer's room, very meticulously crafted to believe the mood matters. It's not just like, let's just write these story points and then let some mood sprinkle over the top. I think what makes Shōgun what it is that it's very specific in its expression. It's very specific in the way that it's seen. And from the mist in the very beginning, which is very closely described on the page throughout, the way it dances, the way it is a character in and of itself, to to the words that the characters speak. It's all crafted.
So how do you know? Was there a point where you knew in each episode where you got it? Is it just a feeling? Is it something tangible?
We say this gets really into the inside writer's room math of it all.
Which I love, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm a geek, so I live for this.
No, look, trust me, there's no place we're happier than in a writer's room, or no place I'm happier, and no place I'm less happy than on set, because I love the writer's room. But when we've got the cards on the wall for a given episode, and we're all playing with it and pulling things off and arguing about it, but there's a moment where when the writer can stand up before the board and fall through the cards. You go from the top and you just feel like there's this inevitable causality that links the momentum of the episode, and it as everyone's there, because you'll pitch it one day and it just feels like work, as you're just turning the proverbial pages. It just doesn't feel like the episode has any momentum to itself. And then there's this day when you can just fall through it, and you've so internalized it that you just know it. We just hit that point with the first episode of season 2 right now in the writer's room, and it's just it when you've got it, when it just sort of hits there and you're like, here it is, this is it, and this is the emotional truth of it. And it's just like, and so you believe the episode, and that's always a really exciting moment, because it's like, great, now it feels like part of our show.
Don't forget that it is the privilege of having lived in this world for now over 5 years, so it is something that has become very instinct driven for us, but that is due to the length of time it's not just because we're so good at it. No, it's just because we've lived in this world and breathed its air for so long.
Yeah, there's no magic or mystery to like what makes the show work on the page. It's just time. It's just writers plus time equals quality. You remove time from that equation, you take shortcuts, and television has a special way of balancing the two. And if you respect the clock as a writer's room, the result is always the same at the end. I've found always.
So since you brought up season 2, I'm not going to ask for any specifics because I literally don't want to know. I want to be surprised, and you wouldn't tell me anyway. I'm curious as to at what point during season 1, either during the making of it or during the airing of it, did the decision to expand this to another season, when did that happen?
Well, you can speak to the specifics of that. All I'll say is that, as you mentioned earlier, 1,200-page book, we couldn't fit in everything we loved about it, of course. And so there was a little bit of a graveyard, so to speak, where all of our beloved, anecdotes or characters that just couldn't be included in the first time around kept accumulating and accumulating. And then
Then we
dot,
wanted to
dot,
find.
dot.
Well, I think that in the writer's room, it was fan fiction. Us playing around with certain continuations and certain ideas. I think that I remember with FX when we were delivering sometime around episode 5 was the first conversation with John and Gina when they read it. They said, this could keep going, and we just sort of laughed it off because it was so early at that time. But when we started shooting, then the fan fiction became a little more cogent, and we started to have real conversations with Michaela Clavel as to what it would look like. And then we started to craft different endings for the first season to accommodate for it. And then we would pull back a little bit, but we actually shot these endings, these different versions. Some of them, multiple ones, ended up getting into the 10th episode in surprising ways. But we kept playing with the form to say, like, how can we create something that feels complete, but also leaves us with the possibility of more? Granted, it's a very expensive show, so the metric for more would be, great success. And then I think it hit that. And so, I don't know, last December, we put together we don't know if we should do this, but if we did, here's what it would look like. And it was supposed to be 5 pages, and it turned into 18, 19 pages.
Almost 20 pages.
Yeah, of just like, here's what the story is, not just for part 2, but also part 3. And we really started to be excited about it, and excited not just about the return of certain characters, but the introduction of new characters as well, and the chance to be kind of radical with the form too. I think there's some stuff in the first episode. If it makes it through our process, I'm very excited for audiences to see, because I think it's not at all it's not what we expect, but it's what we all deserve in a certain way that we think is going to be really fun.
Yeah,
we're watching a lot of great sequels these days in the writer's room to just sort of inspire us for what we could do to really subvert expectations.
Well, I'm not excited about this at all. That's why the camera's not on me while you guys are talking.
Well, you're lucky you're getting us on it's like a good day these days in the writer's room, where we're like super excited about what we have in episode 1.
Last week it was a different story.
Man, it's like, if you get us on a bad day, it's like, I don't know. We'll see if we want to be writers anymore.
Well, Justin, Rachel, thank you so much. I'm thrilled. I can't even tell you how excited I am. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the Emmys, and stay tuned for interviews with more Emmy nominees in the coming weeks. Justin Marks, Rachel Kondo, congratulations. A great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.